Growing up, I always knew I was the second choice. My name is Olivia, and from my earliest memories, I watched my parents shower my older brother Nathan with endless attention and opportunities while I stood in the shadows. The difference in how they treated us wasn't subtle, it was as clear as day. I remember sitting at our kitchen table doing homework alone while my mom and dad drove Nathan to his academic competitions or science club meetings. He was 5 years older than me, and somehow that made him more deserving of everything. Every time his teachers mentioned his academic prowess, my parents jumped at the chance to nurture it, spending money we didn't really have on his advanced courses and educational materials. Nathan has such a brilliant mind, Mom would gush to anyone who would listen. He's going to be something special one day. Meanwhile, I learned early on not to ask for much. When I showed interest in art classes after winning my elementary school's drawing contest, Mom just smiled apologetically. Maybe next semester, honey. Nathan's advanced math program is taking up the budget right now. The disparity became even more apparent during Nathan's senior year of high school. I was 13 at the time, sitting quietly at dinner when my parents made their big announcement. "We've been saving up," Dad said proudly, "and we're going to send Nathan to Westfield Medical Academy. It's one of the most prestigious pre-med programs in the country." Nathan's eyes lit up. "Really? That's amazing." "And that's not all," Mom added. "You can stay in our apartment near the campus. No rent, of course. We want you to focus on your studies." I pushed my peas around my plate, trying to hide my disappointment. Not that anyone was looking at me anyway. They were all focused on Nathan's beaming face as he talked about his future plans as a doctor. That night, lying in bed, I pulled out my sketchbook and drew until my fingers cramped. If they were spending this much on Nathan's medical education and giving him a free apartment, there was no way they'd support my dreams of art school. The realization hit me hard, but instead of crying, I started planning. The next day, I visited my grandparents' house. My grandpa listened as I explained my situation, showing him my portfolio of drawings. "Well, Olivia," he said, studying my artwork carefully, "I can see real talent here." He paused, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "Your parents may not understand this gift, but I do. How would you like to take private art lessons? It'll be our secret." So that's how it started. While Nathan packed up for his prestigious medical academy adventure, I began visiting a small art studio every Saturday. My grandpa had arranged lessons with a retired art professor, and I'd spend hours learning techniques my parents never would have approved of. My grandma would bring me supplies hidden in grocery bags and tell me stories about famous artists. My parents' reaction to my volunteer work at the community center was telling. When I told them about my weekend activities, carefully omitting any mention of art, they seemed relieved, almost grateful that I'd found a productive hobby that cost them nothing. Every weekend spent mixing colors and perfecting brush techniques had paid off. I developed a portfolio I was proud of. When I graduated high school, there wasn't much fanfare, just a quiet dinner at home, but I didn't mind. I was proud of what I'd accomplished in secret. I enrolled in the state university, choosing a practical business program that would satisfy my parents while taking art electives whenever possible. The tuition was reasonable, and with my grandparents' help, I could afford both. Living at my parents' home and taking the bus to campus wasn't glamorous, but it made financial sense. One evening, I brought up the subject. "Mom and Dad, I'm thinking about buying a used car to make it easier for me to go to college." Dad barely looked up from his lecture notes. "Sorry, Olivia. We just don't have the money for that right now." Mom chimed in. "The bus system is perfectly fine. Lots of students use it." I bit my tongue, remembering how they'd helped Nathan get his license and even contributed to his first car. But that was ancient history now. My sophomore year of college passed quickly, and just as I was finishing my spring finals, our house erupted with excitement. Nathan was graduating from medical school with honors. Mom and Dad threw him an elaborate celebration, inviting what felt like half the academic community. Our house was packed with professors, fellow doctors, and family friends, all there to celebrate my brother's achievement. I was arranging appetizers in the kitchen when Nathan made his grand entrance with a sophisticated woman on his arm, Rebecca, a fellow doctor he'd met during residency. They were beaming as they walked into the room hand in hand. "Everyone," Nathan announced, commanding immediate attention. Rebecca and I have some exciting news. We're engaged. The room exploded with cheers and congratulations. Mom burst into tears of joy, and Dad clapped Nathan on the back so hard I thought he might fall over. But wait, there's more, Rebecca added, her voice poised and confident. After our wedding, we're buying a house in Lakeside Heights. Nathan's been offered a position at Memorial Hospital's cardiology department. Mom's tears turned into full-on sobbing. My baby boy, a successful doctor. That's my son, Dad proclaimed proudly. Always knew you were destined for great things. I stood in the corner, watching the scene unfold. Nobody seemed to notice that I'd just won the university's annual art competition, or that one of my paintings had been selected for display in the city gallery. But I was used to it by now. The wedding preparations consumed the next year while I focused on my studies, now in my final year. Mom and Dad threw themselves into planning the perfect wedding for their perfect son. They took out a substantial loan to cover everything: the 5-star hotel venue, the gourmet catering, the string quartet, the designer flowers. Nothing was too good for Nathan and Rebecca. The wedding itself was exactly what you'd expect: extravagant, meticulously planned, and all about Nathan. I stood in my bridesmaid dress, which I had to pay for myself, watching my parents beam with pride as they danced with the happy couple. They'd spared no expense, even though I knew they'd be paying off the loan for years to come. After Nathan and Rebecca left for their honeymoon, I stood in my cramped bedroom at my parents' house, staring at my half-finished canvas. An idea struck me. The apartment where Nathan had lived during medical school was now empty. It was perfectly located near the university's art department, and it would give me some much-needed independence and space to create. I approached my parents that evening while they were reviewing wedding photos. Mom, Dad, since Nathan's apartment is empty now, would it be okay if I moved in there? It would give me a studio space for my art. They exchanged glances before Mom spoke. Well, honey, you can move in, but you'll need to pay rent. An art studio? I thought we agreed that your business degree comes first. The words hit me like a slap in the face. Rent? But Nathan lived there for free for 6 years. And yes, I'm still doing business classes, but I need space for my art too. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his leather chair. That was different. We have the wedding loan to pay off now. And medical school is a real career investment. We need the extra income, and you need to focus on practical skills. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm your daughter too, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I've never asked you for anything this important before. I keep my grades up and work weekends. My art is important to me, just like medicine is to Nathan. Mom held up her hand to stop me. She and Dad had one of their silent conversations, the kind they used to have when deciding whether to spend money on another of Nathan's academic programs. Fine, Mom finally said. We'll charge you half the normal rent, but we don't want to hear about your art taking over your studies. I wanted to argue more, but I knew this was the best offer I get. Okay, I'll take it. That weekend, I moved into the apartment. It still had traces of Nathan everywhere: framed medical awards on the walls, textbooks lining the shelves, a desk perfectly positioned for studying. I transformed one corner into a makeshift studio, setting up my easel where sunlight streamed through the windows. I took extra shifts teaching children's art classes to cover the rent, often working until evening. Between business classes, art projects, and work, I barely had time to sleep. My final year of college passed in a blur of textbooks, paint-stained fingers, and late-night creativity sessions. Before I knew it, my graduation day arrived. While my classmates' families planned parties and celebrations, my parents opted for a quiet dinner at home. They only invited my grandparents, no extended family, no friends, no elaborate catering like Nathan's graduation. We sat around the dining room table, eating the pasta I'd made myself. Grandma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Olivia, dear, we're so proud of you, she said warmly. Graduating with highest honors in business while developing your artistic talents. That's quite an achievement. Before I could respond, Mom's phone buzzed. Her face lit up as she read the message. Oh, speaking of achievements, she interrupted. Nathan just texted. His medical practice is doing wonderfully. He and Rebecca are considering buying a vacation home. I watched as my graduation dinner turned into a celebration of Nathan's success in medicine. My grandparents exchanged knowing looks, and Grandpa squeezed my shoulders supportively as I fought to hide my disappointment behind a practiced smile. My hard work in college paid off unexpectedly. 2 weeks after graduation, I made a decision that shocked my parents. I turned down a business analyst position to accept a part-time teaching role at a community arts center. I supplemented this income by selling my paintings at local markets and taking commission portrait work. The freedom to create was intoxicating, though my bank account wasn't exactly thriving. My parents' reaction was exactly what I'd expected. Mom said during one of her unexpected visits to the apartment, her voice tight with disappointment, "Olivia, your art thing was supposed to be a hobby, not a career. When are you going to get a proper job with your business degree?" I gestured toward the canvas I was working on, a commission piece for a local restaurant. "This is a proper job, Mom. I'm making money doing what I love." "But not enough money," she replied matter-of-factly. "Now that you've graduated, you should start paying the full rent amount. A real business position would help with that." I wanted to point out that Nathan had lived there for free even while earning a residence salary, but I'd learned that comparing myself to my brother was pointless. The apartment's light was perfect for painting, north-facing windows that bathed my workspace in consistent, natural light. So I reluctantly agreed to the increased rent. Life fell into a rhythm of creation and struggle. I threw myself into my art, determined to prove my worth in the local art scene. Every month, like clockwork, Mom would call. "Olivia, dear, just reminding you about the rent. It's due on Friday. We're counting on that money." 3 years passed this way. I earned recognition in the local art community and had my first solo exhibition, but I kept that information from my parents. I'd learned my lesson. Any hint of artistic success would just lead to lectures about wasting my business degree. Through their occasional updates, I heard that Nathan and Rebecca had a baby boy named Jacob. I'd seen pictures on social media but hadn't visited. Our communication had dwindled to perfunctory birthday messages and holiday greetings. I was fine with that. And then came the phone call that changed everything. "Olivia, guess what?" My art mentor's voice was bursting with excitement. "The Harrison Gallery wants to feature your work in their new Emerging Artist Showcase next month. This is huge." I nearly dropped my paintbrush, my heart racing. The Harrison Gallery was the most prestigious contemporary art space in the city. This was the opportunity I'd been dreaming of. That same evening, my phone rang again, this time with my mom's number. Mom's voice was tight with tension. "Olivia, we need to talk about Nathan. There's been some trouble at the hospital. He made a serious error in judgment with an investment scheme. He's lost nearly everything, and Rebecca is threatening to leave him." I closed my eyes, already knowing where this was heading. "He needs some time to sort things out," she continued. "He'll be staying in the city for a while." "Oh," I said carefully. "I assume he'll be staying with you and Dad?" "Actually." Mom paused. "That apartment you're in would be perfect. It's close to the hospital where he can pick up extra shifts." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. "What?" "Mom, this is my home. It's also my studio. I've been living and working here for years. Don't be dramatic, Olivia. Nathan's career is in jeopardy. He needs a proper place to focus and recover professionally. You can paint anywhere." "That's absurd," I protested. "My exhibition at Harrison Gallery is in a month. I need my studio space. If Nathan needs somewhere to stay, maybe I can help him find his own place." "Don't you dare." Mom's voice turned sharp. "We need your support now more than ever. Nathan's going through a rough time. His medical career is at stake. Your little hobby can wait, can it?" I stared at the canvas before me, the centerpiece for my upcoming exhibition, and felt something inside me finally break free. "No, Mom. My art cannot wait. Not anymore." I hung up without another word. The confrontation was worse than I'd imagined. Nathan showed up at my apartment unannounced, suitcase in hand, with Mom trailing behind him. I'd been painting furiously all day, preparing for my exhibition, canvases and art supplies spread throughout the living area. "Olivia, we need to clear all this stuff," Mom directed, waving dismissively at my artwork. Nathan needs a proper space to study for his medical recertification exam. I stood protectively in front of my nearly finished centerpiece. No, this is my home and my studio. These pieces are for my exhibition at the Harrison Gallery in 3 weeks. The Harrison Gallery? Nathan scoffed. Is that supposed to be impressive? This is my medical career we're talking about. Lives are at stake. Mom's expression hardened as she took in my paint-splattered workspace. Don't be selfish, Olivia. Your brother's entire future is hanging in the balance. This painting hobby can wait. This hobby is my career, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I pay full rent, and I won't dismantle my studio 3 weeks before the most important exhibition of my life. Mom stepped closer, lowering her voice. We could always terminate the lease, you know. The apartment is still in our name. The threat hung in the air between us, but something had changed in me. Years of compromise and silent acceptance had finally reached their limit. Then do it, I challenged, surprising even myself. But my artwork stays exactly where it is until after the exhibition. The next few weeks were a tense standoff. Nathan claimed the spare room but complained constantly about the paint fumes and creative chaos of my living space. He spent his days hunched over medical textbooks, sighing whenever I needed to move around the apartment. Mom called daily with new complaints from Nathan about how my art supplies were everywhere and how the lighting I needed for painting gave him headaches. I'd come home from teaching to find my still life compositions tidied away or reference photos removed to make room for Nathan's medical diagrams. When I found one of my wet canvases moved and damaged, I established firm boundaries. This half of the apartment is my studio space, I declared, using painter's tape to create a literal line on the floor. Your half has the spare bedroom, bathroom, and half the kitchen. My half has my workspace and is off limits. Nathan looked up from his textbook, his face twisting with indignation. Are you serious with this tape? I'm trying to salvage my medical career here. I can't study with the smell of turpentine and the sound of you moving canvases around. And I can't create with my work being damaged, I replied firmly. There's a library 2 blocks away if you need silence. Or use some of your savings to rent an office space. Nathan's face turned red. What savings? You think doctors are rich? The malpractice insurance alone. You have no idea what real pressure is like, playing with paints while I'm dealing with life and death decisions. He stormed off to his room, slamming the door so hard my paintbrushes rattled. I turned back to my canvas, a strange calm washing over me as I realized I was finally standing my ground. 2 weeks before my gallery opening, I sat at my easel, surrounded by canvases in various stages of completion. Between the increased rent, art supplies, and framing costs, I was nearly out of money. I called my parents, having rehearsed what to say. Mom and Dad, we need to talk about Nathan. He isn't contributing to expenses, but he's disrupting my work. I can't afford both rent and exhibition costs. Could he pay something while? Mom cut me off sharply. Olivia, I can't believe how selfish you're being. Your brother's medical reputation is at stake. Dad joined in from the background. You should be grateful you can help your family. Your art show isn't paying bills anyway. But this exhibition could be my big break, I insisted. The Harrison Gallery is prestigious. I could sell enough to support myself, but I need to finish the work first. Enough. Mom snapped. Nathan is going through his critical career juncture. You need to understand what real professional pressure looks like. That night, I researched alternative studio spaces and contacted artist friends about sharing workspaces, just in case things got worse. Things got worse 1 week later. I was finishing my centerpiece, a large canvas that had taken months to complete, when my parents walked in unannounced, Nathan trailing behind with a smug expression. Olivia, we need to discuss your arrangement now, Mom announced, eyeing my paintings with obvious disapproval. What arrangement? I paid this month's rent on time. Yes, but we've been thinking about Nathan's needs. Your art activities are disrupting his study environment. I stared at her, stunned. My art activities? In my own apartment? The apartment I pay for? Mom gestured around dismissively. This was meant to be a proper living space, not an art studio. Nathan needs a calm, professional environment. How am I supposed to prepare for a gallery exhibition without my studio? The opening is in 1 week. About that, Nathan interjected with false concern. Is this really the best use of your business degree? I have connections at several financial firms. I'm not giving up my art career, I interrupted firmly. The Harrison Gallery exhibition is happening next week. Mom said with a harder expression. Olivia, just pack up these supplies temporarily. You can store everything in our basement until after Nathan's exam. I looked at their faces, Mom's stern expectation, Dad's avoidance, and Nathan's satisfaction. No, I said quietly, turning back to my canvas. I will not be packing up my art. Not now, not ever again. Excuse me? Mom's face hardened with shock. You heard me. This exhibition is happening. My career as an artist is happening. If Nathan needs a different environment, he can find one. They left promising to return when I'd come to my senses. They had no idea they'd just pushed me to my final decision. Later that evening, I overheard Nathan on the phone with Mom. So it's settled then? Nathan asked, sounding smugly satisfied. Yes, my mom replied through the speakerphone. We'll take Olivia's exhibition pieces to the basement tomorrow while she's teaching. You need the space for your medical books. Nathan's response made my blood run cold. Perfect timing. The board is giving me another chance next month. Those paintings were really getting in my way. Your dad and I will handle Olivia, Mom continued calmly. She'll understand eventually. A real career is more important than some gallery showing. She does have talent, Nathan admitted reluctantly. But nobody makes a living as an artist. Time she used that business degree we paid for. I stood frozen, paintbrush dripping, as their betrayal sank in. This wasn't just unfair support of Nathan. This was deliberate sabotage. They were planning to destroy the exhibition I'd worked years to achieve. I set down my paintbrush and immediately called the Harrison Gallery. Hi, this is Olivia Carson. Could I bring my exhibition pieces in tonight? All of them. It's a security issue. The gallery manager agreed to meet me in an hour. I began wrapping my canvases in blankets and bubble wrap I'd saved for exhibition prep. Each painting represented months of work and years of practice. I quickly called a 24-hour moving service and packed a small suitcase with essentials. As I finished loading my wrapped canvases by the door, Nathan emerged from his room. Going somewhere? He asked, eyeing the paintings with relief. Early gallery installation, I replied calmly. They had a cancellation, so I can set up tonight. All of them? He gestured at the stack. Every single one, I confirmed, meeting his gaze. He nodded, pleased by what he thought was temporary. Good timing. I need to set up medical equipment tomorrow. The moving truck arrived, and we loaded my artwork. At the gallery, the manager helped unload everything into their storeroom. They'll be safe here, she assured me, noticing my suitcase. And you? Will you be okay? I will be, I answered with newfound determination. I found a small studio apartment that same night, using my art supply money for the security deposit. It was tiny, but had a large window with perfect northern light and walls where I could hang my own work. After dropping off my suitcase, I returned to the gallery where I spent the night installing my exhibition. When I finished as dawn broke, I stood in the center and felt something I hadn't experienced in years, complete artistic freedom. For the next week, I threw myself into final preparations for the opening. I slept on a borrowed air mattress and spent every spare moment at the gallery perfecting my exhibition, all without a single family member knowing where I was staying. Then, 2 days before the opening, my phone rang with my mom's number. Olivia! She snapped without preamble. What have you done? All your things are gone from the apartment, and your paintings have disappeared. I couldn't help but laugh as I put finishing touches on the exhibition catalog. Actually, Mom, I know about your plan to hide my artwork in the basement. Were you planning to tell me? That's none of your business. Nathan needs. No, Mom, I interrupted, my voice steady. I've moved out and my exhibition opens in 2 days at the Harrison Gallery. You're welcome to attend, though I don't expect you will. You can't do this. Nathan needs that space for his medical studies. Well, I'm sure Nathan will appreciate having the whole apartment to himself now. After a silence, Mom's voice turned sugary sweet. Let's not be hasty. We never meant to suggest your little art show wasn't important. What if we come to the opening? No, Mom. This exhibition isn't for you. It's for me and everyone who believes in my work. But Olivia, we're family. You can't just. Family? Is that what you call it when you plot behind my back to destroy my artistic career? Goodbye, Mom. The exhibition opens at 7 p.m. on Friday if you decide you actually want to see who I really am. I ended the call and turned my phone to silent. The Harrison Gallery exhibition changed everything. I sold 11 paintings on opening night, including the centerpiece to the city's most prominent collector. A respected critic called my work emotionally resonant, the emergence of an important new voice. My grandparents attended, beaming with pride. My parents and Nathan did not show up, though I spotted my dad briefly peering through the window before walking away. That was 6 months ago. My grandparents keep me updated on the family situation. Nathan failed his recertification and now calls himself a medical consultant. My parents have dipped into retirement savings to cover his apartment while he establishes his business. My artistic career has flourished. I've moved into a studio loft with high ceilings and walls covered with works in progress. The Harrison Gallery offered me another exhibition, and other galleries have contacted me about showing my work. I teach advanced classes, encouraging students to pursue art regardless of family pressure. Last week, I received an envelope with no return address. Inside was my exhibition review and a note. I always knew you had talent. Dad. I pinned it to my inspiration board, next to sketches of my newest series about finding your authentic voice. I'm finally creating without apology, and it feels absolutely right.